Boa tarde, boa noite.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? I'm Luisa Silva, coordinator of a Brazilian registry of clinical essays from Fiocruz, and I will begin with my presentation for self-description. I am a middle-aged woman, white, with hair with blonde streaks. I do not wear glasses, which is an important description. My biography includes that the fact that I am from communication and production and intelligence for the future. But currently, I'm only Rebecca's best friend, who became the real star in our registry for clinical essays. What is the clinical trials registry? Everything needs to be tested. Everything that you use, be it equipment or medication, needs to be tested. By the time it reaches human trial, we have a number of trials beforehand. And then we have a clinical trial. And for this result to be validated, we have the clinical trials, we we have the publication, and then they are accepted, and they go into production and reach you. And that's where the issue lives. If I ask you, do you know a good tip for a code? Every person has a different tip. But if we have a good tip against Pinetti, nobody would have that, or very few people would, unless I'm in a neurosurgeon event. They are neuroectodermal tumors that are primitive. And to validate that kind of information, I need to have at least the capability and knowledge at the same level that will allow me to talk with us our scientific article. So the more complex the subject, the lonelier is the point in the scale of knowledge. So the trials need to be published in the proper medical publication, and very few medical journals could publish this. And very few people will be able to validate that information.
O que é o Rebec?
What is a Rebec? It's a record to have so that we can have all the information for that trial. And that information for the trial is standardized because we begin from the base concept that anything that can be reproduced for the clinical trial. So if I'm going to make a cake, and you read a recipe, and you read the recipe for something else, I cannot validate that information. And that's what this record does. It adds all the information for clinical trials in open platforms. And these trials can be viewed by anyone. We complete 15 years in December with over 15,000 records. And we have a standard of quality that allows us to be one of the 17 members of the country, of the planet with this standard. And Rebecca helped us in this task. This is the World Health Organization that gathers all clinical trials of the World Health Organization, and Brazil is one of the signatories on this sector. It's an information ecosystem of information of very high level that needs to be very, very well curated, because this could save life or not. And these actors work exactly to make the information as transparent as possible so that we can have, say, the safety of the patients. Within the same ecosystem, we have these objectives to supply access to any interested party to the data and encourage research. because when we give the information to everyone and the information circulates as knowledge, you allow people to use that information in different ways, and the investment is preserved. You don't have rework and reinvestments uselessly. How can we do this magic? We have 23 people serving the whole of Brazil. That's right. And we have an 8% growth every year. How do we do that? We needed some help. We have a total of, I measured the number of clinical trials, and we have 16,000 clinical trials. And out of those, 8,000 are for public viewing. We receive, access, process the information, sends it to Geneva, and anyone can access it, including any AI can use the data in this database. Maybe this is interesting for you because it's a kind of an 0800 number. But now I ask, if I have 23 people looking up clinical trials in all sorts of subjects, do I need one reviewer for each medical specialty? That would be impossible. So I ask you, do you know what the fruit that jackfruit tree has? If you sit under a jackfruit tree, you will never have a cherry falling into your head. So we cannot ignore the design of a trial and separate it from the result. All that you promise to deliver needs to make sense. We cannot read a journal or an article that promises cherry and suddenly have a different design, a different proposal that is not related to that. Unfortunately, a lot of scientists do that. And this gets in the way of all those people from the scientific article publications that I mentioned before. So the way to validate this scientific information, these journals need to rely on the truth of the scientist. And that doesn't always happen. And because this doesn't always happen, we need safeguards. Remember how many suffered from Tamiflu, thalidomida. So we need a design. If the design is constant, it doesn't matter what field. That's why we have 23 editors that do that kind of work. How do? We have the submission. They decide if you went to the ethical committee. In Brazil, we will not accept any experiment that is not approved by an ethical committee. This is a minimum of civilization, if you agree with me. Then we curate the information. I cannot. The interesting thing is seeing that after we see that there's an ethical committee and you have a enrollment directly to Geneva, who we work with, then we will analyze field by field. Brazil is the country with the largest data set of information, is the highest level of transparency, the golden standard of the planet. And then we do rounds of analysis until the scientists have everything proper in its right place. This took a long time and it didn't have fun. So we began to produce solutions. We are the only one with open code. We are the only one who offer the service with AI service. When pandemic happened, we continued without funding. We had direct interaction channel to create the possibility for people and scientists to talk directly to us, and so we could clarify their questions. And we are the only ones that have fast tracks. So we had all those rounds for approval. This would take time. And this time, we need to shorten. when in case of emergencies like the Zika virus, the pandemic, and a lot of people like to say that the vaccine was not properly tested, and that's not true. The truth is that all the bureaucracy was squeezed by Rebec when we talk about fast tracking, so that we could have solutions. From the moment that we have funding, we began to see a standard of possibilities. We spent the whole of pandemic saving all the chats, all the interaction with people that come talk to us. We have 5 years of information, and these 5 years of information, from the moment that we had some funding to invest, we simply fed Rebecca with this information. So we not only fed Rebecca with all the relevant regulation for Brazil and the whole network, ICTRP, the world network, but also with the standards of doubt of our scientists. So we manage to think of us as software as assertive. From the moment that we implement Rebecca, it transforms, generates external, positive, and cumulative in our processes.
Oh, then we started dreaming. And dreaming is free of any cost. And we started thinking everything we could have, we could do better if we had our intelligence fully running. As of the pandemic, we created the human chat, and we started interacting directly with the registrars. We have 2,129 interactions, myself and my 22 peers. And then we had this year the number of chats of 444 human chats. But in fact, this is the moment where it takes on the chat. When it undertook the chat, we had 444, and then between this period of almost 3 months, we have 98 humanized chats. So it served 220. So there are 122 fully served by the machine, right? So this represents a quantum quality leap. And then this is Rebecca. All the image we have for it in the 4.0 version that's going to be released in December when we celebrate our anniversary. It is the one fed, with the golden standard. It speaks so many languages. We don't know how many. It speaks Latin and Sinhalese. So go figure. And it serves 20, it works 24/7 days, just like my team. My platform is always operational so that we can continue signatory of RCTP and the golden standard. So if you go on the platform and ask any question on clinical trial, it's going to answer you. So at the start, we have a new screening. It can send you to a human attendant or one of the 4 different ideas that we have in terms of most frequent question. Let's show video 1, please. Why have we decided to use AI? There is a high number of questions that were asked coming from the registrants. We started trying a tool that could automate this process and help the reviewers to do what they were hired for, to review the clinical trials. Then we created a chat with AI, and that was trained to find out all the questions related to the registration of clinical trials. Question number 2 is the following. Why haven't they developed their own AI? Well, to develop own AI requires financial and human resources. And this is not our core business. Our core business to review and to curate the registrations. But what we had was sufficient data and to continue with our database of over 5 years of humanized service of a chat where the questions asked by the registrants were clarified. And then we organized this information in order to train an AI that was already available on the marketplace.
Bem,
Well, so then you saw this is Diego Tosh from the Tosh Consulting Firm, and who is our technology and innovation manager. And it's Rebecca's father. So what you can see here, she answered the question Sinhalese. We are going to enter an agreement with Sri Lanka of the golden standard that wants to be qualified. And they face a lot of difficulties to stay in business. We are going to help them. Let's show the next video. And the third question, when to make the decision to adopt ready-to-use solutions. It happened post-pandemic where we had a robust and organized database to use to train the AI existing on the marketplace, as it is in the case of our chat. So the fourth question is, what is the differentiation between the Rebec and the other registrations around the world? We can say that Rebec was first of some of the AI and some of data of humanized service already had the service 2020. No other registry made the decision of created, of a chat for their registrant. So we started first and we kept the data so that in the future we could use the data to train the machine. So we have 4 years of experience. We use a trained AI for over 5 years of data, in addition to a knowledge base that was formulated in detail to clarify all doubts of the registrant. So this is our differentiator. Well, so then you saw her capabilities. It can answer the questions properly, and all the information of the CTRP network is standardized, and it masters over 100 languages. We are in contact of Geneva to train Rebecca, not only to serve, our registrant and reviewers, according to the 22 reviewers, but helping each scientist to do his job faster and with fewer complications. And this can be done all over the world. Okay, I'm going to show you another video. The fifth question, what Rebec AI is able to do. It serves the registrant, is an automated chat that serves the registrant. When we trained it to answer the registrant, we had to teach her about the registration of clinical trials, what are the fields that registrants have to include, what's right, what's wrong. And by doing that, we practically created a beta version for the review of clinical trials. So this is the new phase we are working on right now. So not everything is a bed of roses. For example, the question, what clinical trials on COVID-19 are recruiting? First, she said that there are none. When I asked what are the COVID existing on the basis, she answers giving the clinical trials that are recruiting. We don't know why it has this delay. It is as it included some answers. The answer is correct, but not the sequence. We need to find out why. In addition, it works with some themes like health conditions and national and global emergencies. And we transform that in fast tracks with our express approval pathways for some priorities of the Brazilian health system. We are a global network, but Rebec is Brazil, is Fiocruz, a Ministry of Health. We have a specific fast track for traditional population. Research, for example, Yanomamis, original people. We have a fast track for neglected diseases, the so-called the poverty diseases. That is, to prioritize the scientists that are working on relevant topics to make health more equal throughout Brazil. And they have determined some branches of study and find the best design for research. I think it's accelerated. But anyway, the fast tracks are done on measure for the Brazilian reality. Just to give you an idea of what it means, today we have these fast tracks. As of June 1st, we, in cooperation with WHO, we decided to met all the priorities of WHO, not only for Brazil, but for the entire Latin America, so that we can encourage the cooperation amongst our scientists and los hermanos. And this means that all diseases and emergencies, all the pathogens considered priority for health in the subcontinents and the prototype pathogens we use to produce vaccines are covered by fast track. When you have this type of study, Rebecca tell you immediately that you are entitled to have a priority base. And the other thing is the idea of the Latin America hub. It's very hard to start a registration from scratch. You need some capital, some funds. So these are common challenges that some countries are not in a position to quickly solve the problem. However, to the virus, it doesn't matter. The less they solve the problem, better for the virus. So we need to work against that. So that's why we suggest to have a Latin America hub. Consider our research leadership in the subcontinent. In the Americas, we lose only in clinical trials in the number of registrations. We don't know how will be the U.S. policies in this regard, but in fact, we work towards our sovereignty. We are working towards protect the subcontinents of health emergencies, as it was Zika and the pandemic. So the Latin America hub would be a trilingual hub of service by Rebecca, but it would make it easier, the cooperation with countries that are the funders, Sweden, France, Germany. Each one of these collaborators can be served in their own language. So how does that work? We would have initially this focus on Latin America, but as it speaks more than 100 languages, any interested country could be part of the golden standard of clinical trial. We are going to create small Rebecs as shells, small shells, and each country set up its own Rebec using our infrastructure and with Rebecca's support. And then they register, and this goes to Rebec as if it were a clearance house. And from there, we send it to Geneva, to the CRTP network. This way, all research produced in Latin America can be quickly consolidated, and every 30 days, as we have been doing for 10 years, we export the data sets to Geneva. Now, priorities. It's Valentine's Day, so you are toothless. What can you do? You may be tempted to enter into a dating app. It's possible, but what is funny is that the dating apps are very similar with the recruitment of clinical trial. Nobody thought about that before, especially when I invented this in 2016, because the major aspect in the matching of the dating app is to see people, to learn about the person, and something that in clinical trial you cannot disclose due to the GDPR, LGPD. And then I started thinking, if I could make people profiles that were depersonalized concerning their personal information, I could do the recruitment free of charge in the most complicated areas of our country using only a cell phone. So we need to recruit individuals eligible. We need experimental new technology and assets made available in the cell phone. In the most need communities, you have only this type of access. This is a match design or an app. So this was a first version I designed in 2016, and the next one that will be launched in December. So this is the outline of the 2016. This is the new version, and it's possible because we are going to do this conversion, this encryption, a codification of people's data. For example, female volunteer 266, Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, volunteer trans, all 456, Brasilia, Sao Paulo, researcher 11. So that's the trial he is conducting, Rio de Janeiro 00912, and so on. If I have this, I have all the identities preserved, so the volunteers cannot talk to each other, but the researcher has access to the database of volunteers. So it's a new code of AI we are working on, and so this would be pretty much the way the person would work. That is, it puts its own description. There is a drop down, and it looks for a match geographically and also based on disease. We are creating a high precision search. It doesn't look so nice because this is not the front end. It was just for presentation purposes. That is in the test server, but I can put the AI to work with it. And once you have found what you want, the AI sends its results directly to you in the format you want. So in the kitchen, we have done some hiring to conduct this expansion. For example, the single health and compliance so that we can understand all the ethical committees. We have to work hard and to take the social control as a request at the World Health Committee in May.
We have one last public journal where Brazil was part of, with the definition of the new transparency normative that will be coming to act in the next few years. So we are very well ahead of time. Luckily, we had this presence of mind, and you can do the same. We just used everything that is available already. Innovation will bring, all we have to do is find new uses for this. I would like to play a video of our vice president talking about Rebecca. Fiocruz has existed for 125 years. It's the next video. I'm VP of Research and Biological Collection for Fiocruz. Our organization is completing 125 years, showing everyone that our science continues to evolve, combining multidisciplinary studies and excellency with quality and excellency that the world demands. Rebecca, our AI, is transforming clinical trials in Brazil. With its specific intelligence for clinical research, we increase technical expertise, reduce error, and make information easily accessible for researchers. Rebecca represents efficacy, trustworthiness, and social responsibility in each stage of clinical trials. So this was it. Thank you. All this information and technology. We are a public organization. We are a foundation, and we work with you. We work with you all, and we'll be happy to assist. If you have any money in the banks to fund us, we can do even more, and that would be wonderful. Thank you.